Hello, homeschooling families. How are you guys doing this morning? So this is Janet with Covenant Homeschool Resource Center, and today I am super excited. I mean, really super excited because I am here with Michelle Harris. Hi, Michelle.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
No, thank you for having me.
Yes. So today we're going to be talking about special needs. Michelle has 3 children. They are surviving quadruples, and she's going to share a little bit about her adventure and her path as she has decided to educate at home her children. But we're going to be talking a lot about special needs, homeschooling, and also the ESA. So before we start, I wanted to explain a little bit the legal definitions. So homeschooling is education that is led by the parent and privately funded. And to homeschool, you need to fill up an affidavit. And if you go to our website, you can read the whole law and stuff like that. But that's basically the gist of it. And people with special needs can choose to homeschool. They fill the affidavit and so on. But Arizona is an amazing state. We have so many choices. And there's something called the ESA. So if you want to be part of the Empowerment Scholarship, there are certain rules that you have to follow. And we will put a link in our website too, or here in the messages. That will redirect you to that. But in summary, ESA is publicly funded education that can be done at home. So the parent can home educate their child, or the parent can hire other people or even send the kid to private school, correct?
Correct.
So here at Covenant Homeschool Resource Center, we are very supportive of parental rights. And we believe that the parents love the children and they will make the choices that are best for their kids. And that is the premise that we're doing this Facebook Live here with Michelle.
That's right, absolutely.
Yes. And so Michelle has been homeschooling. Have you homeschooled all the way, or did your kids ever go to school?
No, well, so in Arizona, if your child is not kindergarten age, entering into kindergarten is the only time that you may enroll your child into the ESA program without needing to do 100 days in public school. So I missed that window because I happened to come to the state, move to the state when my children were entering kindergarten. I did not know about the ESA program at that time. And in 3rd grade, my children did do public school online, and it was quite the experience. And I have to say, it was through that experience that I was like, well, so I was doing a good job homeschooling because they did really well in all of the tests that the school gave my children. Not to say they weren't still deficient in areas due to their disabilities, but considering their disabilities, they did really well. And the public school was surprised at how well they were doing. So kind of taking that information, plus watching my children struggle. That was my big issue. My children struggled mightily in the public school system, and it destroyed my son's confidence in his mathematic abilities just in that 100 days that I had to put him into public school. So it let me know that I think I was on the right track.
Yes.
And that homeschooling was much better because it allows me to kind of bend the learning environment around my children's disabilities.
So after you you started homeschooling your children,
Correct.
and then you did, in order to be part of the ESA, you have to do 100 days in school, or a specific number of hours, which I don't know what it is.
Correct. And I was going to say, like the public school online, there is an hour requirement. It's not days.
Yes.
But it also is kind of a sliding scale. It's more hours when a child is in the upper grades or older, and then it's less when they're younger.
Yeah.
And I don't know what those numbers are at the top of my head, but that information we can easily find out in the post.
And so you did that. Your kids did 100 days, and then after the 100 days, they qualified for the ESA.
Correct.
And then you started teaching them at home. So what were some of the benefits for you to have become part of the ESA, for you and your kids?
It's been amazing. I am so thrilled because having a child with special needs, it's really difficult to teach them at home sometimes. And as a parent, you can get really lost because you're not sure how to kind of teach around their disabilities. And I think you have to give yourself a lot of grace when you first start off homeschooling, no matter whether your child is neurotypical or not. And it's because it does take time, I believe, for you to kind of learn what your teaching style is and for you to understand what your child's learning style is, and then sort of find that match between the two of you. But I was really struggling, and I know my daughter really struggles in math. She has severe dyscalculia. She has a severe specific learning disability in math. And even to this day at 11, the poor child does not understand place value. And I felt like, it was me, and I couldn't explain place value well enough to her. And an ESA funds were amazing because it allowed me to hire a special education teacher to come in and teach and work with her. And to some justification for me, she hasn't been able to teach my daughter place value either. So that makes me feel a little better because, I at least I feel like it wasn't just me.
Absolutely.
But, it was nice to be able to have somebody who's technically a professional come in and also work with her and then see what progress that, she could make with her too. So it's been great because as you had mentioned, I do have surviving quadruplets. And so I had 4 children, and one of my babies passed away the day after she was born, and then the other 3 survived. And so I have Margaret, James, and Joseph, who are my children, and I love them to pieces, but they do have a variety of disabilities. All have autism, 2 have ADHD. One of them has ataxic cerebral palsy and vision impairment. He's blind in one eye and has limited vision in the other. So I have kind of this whole host of disabilities. James is more of an Aspie. He is very high functioning autistic, very smart, and has what they call splinter skills. So he's really high in some areas and then kind of low in others. So math is one of the areas in which he struggles. And then he reads at a college level. It's amazing what he can do and read, but his reading comprehension is only at like a 6th or 7th grade level. So these are all things that I had to realize and then kind of take into account when I instruct him at home. And then his brother, Joseph, who has the visual impairment, and he's also considered intellectually delayed because he has slow processing speed, and it's so slow, he's in the less than 0.1 percentile for his processing speed. So he's incredibly slow thinker, but he's very smart. He's just very slow. And in the public schools, they were in 3rd grade putting him into their low functioning class where they were teaching him kindergarten skills. And I'm like, no, he already knows the days of the week, the months of the year. This isn't an appropriate place for him. And so it was great to be able to pull him and educate him at home. Due to his slow processing speed, I homeschool year round, so this way we don't rush through the material. We can take our time. And that's another benefit. We don't have to rush. And so I can take my time, make sure he understands the material, and then we can move on.
Yes. Now, I wanted to mention that I met your son, James.
Yes.
And this is one thing that I love. And I was really impressed by Michelle, just we were talking and she was sharing a lot of knowledge. But at the same time, there's little things that you are aware, and it's very good for people that have special needs to become aware. For example, when your son introduced himself to me, you've been working with him already. So he looked at me and he was like, "Do I know you?" He says, "Very nice to meet you. My name is James." And then he got kind of nervous. And what I loved is that you explained me, you've been working with him, so he felt that I was a little too close to him, even if I wasn't, because it was a normal distance. But so you're working with him. So right now he's learning to look at me like this, and soon enough he'll be able to look at me like this.
Hopefully, that is the hope. That is the hope.
But either way, he looked at me in the eye and he shook my hand.
Correct.
And then he released his nerves, which was super cute.
Right. And, so what she means is he was flapping. He did this.
Yeah. And actually, my oldest daughter, I don't know why, but she liked to do that even when she was in college. But sorry about the technical difficulty. The broadcast stopped. But
Facebook's been having issues lately.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with that.
Yeah. But we were just saying, about how your son was able to introduce himself to me and greet him and look at me in the eye, and through therapy and also working with him, you're just teaching him what are some of the social acceptable things, so he will be able to incorporate himself well. correct, as he grows up and becomes an independent adult.
Well, I think one of the biggest concerns you hear over and over again when you homeschool, doesn't matter what child you might be homeschooling, is socialization, right? Everybody is concerned. Socialization. Honestly, I think it's highly overrated. So, and what I mean by that is peer socialization in particular, I think is overrated. I don't think it's as big of a deal as you think it is. And part of the reason for that is I'm not training my child to be a child. What I'm training my child is to be an adult. And I want my child to be able to interact with adults, because they are only a child until they're 18. And then after that, they're an adult.
For the rest of their lives.
For the rest of their life. And that's a lot longer than childhood. So I want my children to understand, kind of things from a child's perspective. But I don't want them to act necessarily childlike. And I think that's okay. And a lot of times you hear that it's not. But for my children, knowing that they have disabilities, and I think this is another important point to make, is that when a child has disabilities, things you would think a child should normally just pick up on, like social cues and social interaction, they don't. They need to be explicitly taught these things. So for my child, James was extremely social, which is unusual for somebody with autism. But his socialness caused a problem in the fact he would, so I remember a story when he was 4, and when he was 4, we were at a pool, and there was like a little hot tub area full of grown women, and my son was in that hot tub area asking all the women, what's your name, where do you live, what's your phone number? I mean, he sounded like he was hitting on him, but he was 4. And so they all thought it was so cute. Yeah. And they were telling him his phone number. And I'm like, please don't do that, because he has a really good memory. And if you tell him and he knows how to use the phone, he may very well call you. And so Lydia was like, no. And I said, so James, what's her name? And he said what her name was. Where does she live? Because she had told him that information too. And he repeated her address. And I was like, what is her phone number? He told me what that was also. And I was like, so he could call you and he could look you up. And I said, if he knew my social security number, he would tell you that him and his, social behavior. And so I had to teach him, what's a social filter? How do we properly introduce ourselves? What is too much information that we're sharing? Yes. And so you have to literally show and model these things to your child.
Yeah, I was very impressed with James' introduction and the stuff that you were sharing me. So now that you're teaching your children at home, what do you think are some of the benefits to home educating children of special needs, in addition to the extra time and stuff you mentioned?
I think the biggest benefit is that you can bend that learning environment around your child. So, for instance, Joseph, who I said has ataxic cerebral palsy, intellectually delayed, autism, visually impaired. He has a lot of stuff going on. And so it's really nice that I can kind of bend the learning environment around him. So I can teach him, like, he has limited attention. So I can keep our lessons to 15 minutes or less. And that we can have 4 or 5 15-minute lessons in a day. And that's a great way for him to learn. He has that super impaired processing speed. So if we need to repeat lessons, I can. And I can keep repeating that information until he gets it. Or I can introduce YouTube video, which we like YouTube videos a lot. You do have to be careful. Be very careful on YouTube. Make sure you watch the video first in its entirety before you send your children off to go watching things. But YouTube videos can be really great, and it's nice because that video information, if he likes the video, he'll keep watching it over and over again. And then he'll learn the information that way. So it's not just me feeding him information. The fact that I can break things up into however small of a unit to help him understand, I can teach year round. For my son James, who's gifted, and would be considered 2E, twice exceptional, where he excels, we can just let him excel and run, and where he's behind, I can meet him there and help bring him up. So I really like that ability that we have to, meet the children where they are, so they're not bored right? They're learning what they need. Sometimes, for Joseph, we don't need to focus on academics. So we need to focus on our adaptive skills. What does he need to know so that he can be an independent, functioning adult when he's fully grown? And due to his slow processing speed, we've already started. Like, he's only 11, but we've already started working on vocational training for him. And it's important, I think, for him in particular, because he is so slow in his learning process. He needs lots of time to learn. He needs lots of practice. And I'm able to give him that. Whereas in school, they would still be focusing solely on academics.
Yes. So, children with special needs, like you're saying, you have a lot going on in your home at different levels. Plus, you guys have doctor's appointments, specialists. So how did you handle, how does it look like to homeschool multiple children, and how do you handle that?
Well, very carefully. So I do try to have a schedule. My children in particular, because they do have autism, they like a visual and to have a schedule. And then it's kind of nice too, because at this point they know how to tell time, and they'll tell me when I'm not on the schedule. And I think that's good to help keep me on track. And
I thought it was really cute that your kids were very excited that you were doing the Facebook Live.
Yes.
And they were like checking on you. It's like, what time is it, Mom? When are you going to do that?
Yes.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah, they're really funny. They revolve around time. But yeah, I think it was really nice though. I don't know. Like I said, just being able to, homeschooling them, it's not as hard as it seems. I think what I do is I just take advantage of the DDD services that my children are entitled to. So we do have the therapy from DDD, so they come to my home, and that helps because then I'm not on the road losing time. Child, I have a rehabilitation worker, she takes a child, and then I can take a child. And so, I can kind of swap around, the therapist is done with one child, that another child, and then we just kind of rotate.
Okay, that's excellent. So, do you have any recommendations for some parents whose children with special needs are in traditional school and they're really thinking on transitioning into either the homeschool or the AESA? What would be some recommendations? I know we talked a little bit about the deschooling when we were talking earlier. Have you guys heard about that? Deschooling?
Deschooling, I think, is super important, especially if your child is having behavior issues. So I do educational advocacy, and one of the things I often hear why parents pull a child from public school is because of behavior. And the parent isn't seeing the behavior at home, but in the public school, they're constantly getting written up and or suspended due to behavior. A lot of times that behavior is really initiated, in my opinion, because they aren't being properly supported in the public school environment for whatever reason. And I think it's best if you can pull your child out of the public school, because if a child, if the school is busy writing up referrals for behavior, potentially what could happen is they'll accumulate enough that the school will then try to bounce your child to an alternative or behavioral school. And there, often parents complain that their child really learns some very unacceptable behaviors from that environment. So it's good to try to stop a school from doing that. And then one of the ways you can do that is to pull your child and homeschool them. And
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and one of the things is I hear pretty consistently when parents do that, they're like, oh, my child is so calm now, and their anxiety they have is gone, and we don't have any behavior issues. I don't understand what was going on. It's that lack of support, So, and that you at home know your child, and so you're bending that learning environment around your child.
Yes. So what deschooling also is to take a time period before you actually start teaching your kid. You don't, we were talking about this the other day, you don't want to recreate public school at home.
Correct.
And that's all we know. We went to traditional school, so the very few people that were homeschooled, they're the only lucky ones. The rest of us, we just think like a traditional school. Correct. So we're thinking of homeschooling, and we're thinking, okay, well, we need to do math here and history.
We have a hard schedule. We have to have a classroom, and we have to have a desk and a chair, and be very formal, and it's literally recreating public school at home.
Yes. So what deschooling is a time period that you take to take a break. you don't start teaching. If you need to maybe math, read a lot of books for your kids, whatever, but you don't want to start a full-blown schedule. You want to go on field trips. You want to get used to being together because you're not used to being together all those hours.
Correct.
And then the kids come from school tired. And this is also for kids that do not have special needs. We recommend the same thing. They come from school tired once they're in school, so their times at home is for homework and to recuperate from being tired. So now they have all their day at home, but that's their only frame of reference. So now it's like, no, we can do more chores, we can learn living skills. We have the time to do it, but you have to figure out how you're going to incorporate it because it can be a shock for the entire family.
Yes. Especially if you have multiple children that you're now withdrawing and taking on at once.
Yes.
So, yes, I highly encourage deschooling if you're pulling your child from public school, especially if they have anxiety issues or they've been having behavioral issues at school, because they're just sort of rebelling against that, I don't know, kind of formal training, So, like, let's do something different. We're going to do something completely different. And I know for my children at their age, because they're now in 5th grade, what I do for them is, well, first for kindergarten through 3rd, we just did unschooling. And we literally, it was just the most formal definition of unschooling. It was child-led. I really didn't do much of anything. I just sort of, in the moment, maybe had tried to, use a teachable moment to go, oh, by the way, and give them a little tidbit of information. But other than that, I didn't go out of my way to particularly, teach them something. But yet they all magically learned the alphabet and all magically learned colors and numbers and a lot of other important things that they needed to know in that kindergarten through 3rd grade kind of system.
Yes. So as an example, in reference to what you were just saying, I think I gave this example in that last Facebook Live I did, but there was a parent who had their child in school. He was behind, not doing well, pulled them out, but the parent wanted to test him. So they took the IVA test, and then when the scores came in, they were all freaked out because they thought they were like failing because they had done no science and it was that recuperation year, they had taken it kind of light. And the kid did really well, especially in science when they did nothing.
Correct.
So what they have been doing is exactly the type of things that you have been saying, going to the library, reading books that the kids were interested in.
Go to the museum. Yeah.
It's like magic.
Right. Well, and like I said, even, with my kids, they liked watching YouTube, right? So they would watch all these videos on YouTube. There's a lot of great videos on YouTube. So, I think it's very easy to homeschool, especially in the early grades. You don't need to do anything formal. I hear a lot of people like, I need a curriculum, I need something. And I'm like, no, you're just teaching the alphabet and letters and colors. And I go, everything just kind of falls into place. So you don't need to sweat it. Don't worry about it. I do highly recommend in those years that you do work on fine motor skills. You do work on crossing the midline. And we
what
can
is
help.
The midline?
Well, we can help provide some links for that.
Okay.
But yeah, crossing the midline, it's an occupational therapy sort of thing.
Okay.
And what it is that you're working on having like your hand cross over to do an activity. And it helps with quite a few things when it comes to educational, including handwriting. And that's part of the reason you want to work on those things is to help with the fine motor development that will eventually lead to scissor cutting and coloring, pasting, handwriting.
Oh, excellent.
So those are the only thing I would really try to actively encourage, along with modeling social behavior. I think that's another important aspect that you want to make sure you're doing. Other than that, I think everything else is just kind of, it's about fun and exploring and playing with Play-Doh and, not sweating it, just enjoying your time together.
Yes, absolutely. So there are some parents that are very concerned about getting a diagnosis for their children because they don't want their kids to be labeled. And so what is your opinion on that?
I would highly encourage them to do so. And I understand the sentiment, right? Because you don't want to kind of put your child in a box. But there are important aspects to that, especially for medical purposes. So you got to, say you get a medical diagnosis of autism in most states, including this state, you will find that entitles you to services. That entitles you to services from the DDD, like what I take advantage of. And that includes therapy along with respite And respite is so very important. That was one of the things we are so thankful in this state for, because we get 600 hours of respite in a given year for our children. This is time that my husband and I get to go out. Like, we go every other weekend, and we go out on a date day. And it's great because somebody will come in and watch our children and allow us to leave. We really have time to reconnect. And, you know, with the lives that we lead and having our surviving quadruplets, it's really important to try to help, you know, keep your family together by staying connected with your partner.
Absolutely. So there's the medical diagnosis and also the diagnosis from the public school.
Correct.
Now, what is an IEP and how important is that?
Okay, so for homeschooling in particular, right, you don't need an IEP. You do need an IEP to apply for ESA funds. So an IEP or a 504. And, well, like I said, there are some other ways that you can apply for ESA funds, and you're going to list a link, right, for ESA, so that way you can see what all the different criteria is. But a lot of people who wind up using ESA have children who have special needs. They have a 504 or an IEP, and the primary eligibility on the IEP determines your funding for ESA. Now, say the primary eligibility on your IEP is autism. So for autism, in the educational setting, the definition is the state definition, and it's listed in the state law, and the state law really just defers to federal law. And so it's the federal definition under IDEA.
Okay. And
that's a little bit different than the medical definition of autism that's listed in the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. And its definition is a little different. So that's why people are often confused, because they may have a child who, say, is determined to have autism at school and think, oh, well, that means they have autism medically. No, that doesn't necessarily translate over. And then vice versa. You may have somebody who has a medical diagnosis of autism, and they take that to the school, and they're like, here, you know, we need our IEP that says autism. It's not always quite that cut and dry, because you have to say, do they meet the educational threshold of autism?
Okay.
So it's different.
So if a parent homeschooling, we hear families that try to get some services through the public school, because I believe they're supposed to help us, but it doesn't seem to work out.
Correct.
So which is the better way? Is it the educational diagnosis that you get through the public school, or the medical? Which one do you think helps the child better?
So in my opinion, and again, you have to go by like what you know your experiences are, right? So in my opinion, I do believe that medical is way better, and so I will explain why.
Okay.
Because one is, if you are educating your child at home and you are trying to get services from the public school district, the public school districts are already strapped. They really, if you have withdrawn your child and your child isn't actively in the public school system, they don't want to really deal with you. And it's literally, it's just because of caseload. They just don't really have the time to do it. And in this state, they are not required. It's up to each school district as to whether they provide services. It's because they're supposed to provide the same level of services, from my understanding, as they provide to a private school student.
Okay.
So it can be done, but it's a lot more difficult. And then now you're having to set up things with the school, and then the whole time process for the school can take a really long time. And then you got to convene the IEP team. Then you got to convince them that they need therapy or services, and that they're going to supply. I mean, there's a lot involved. And then when you get the services from them, often they are supplied by therapy assistants. So it's, you know, a physical therapy assistant, an occupational therapy assistant, a speech therapy assistant, and not an actual speech therapist, occupational therapist. They're assistants, and they work under the therapist. So these are all things that I think make educational therapy less desirable, whereas if you had a medical therapy, you go talk to your doctor. My child needs therapy. The doctor says, oh, yeah, I think you might be right. We're going to give you a referral. You go get the testing. They say you need therapy. Then you start therapy. It's a lot simpler. Your child usually gets therapy one-on-one versus in a group setting at the public school system. There's no big IEP team to convene. If you don't like how the therapist is working out, it's a lot easier to change and go somewhere else. So I just find, I think, just that one-on-one and the working that you get through medical therapy, I would highly encourage you to do so. Also, again, in particular, if your child has a medical diagnosis of autism, then often that qualifies them for the DDD services, so you can exercise and use those. And then they do therapy in your home, and a lot of times that's super convenient, especially if you have multiple children.
So when you do this medical diagnosis, you can usually use your insurance, correct?
Well, you can use your insurance, but often for some of the eligibility, and depending on your income, you may qualify then for state Medicaid. And you can kind of enroll into the state Medicaid program, and that's what... So my husband is a public school teacher here in this state, and his salary is low enough that we qualify for state Medicaid. And it really helps because though he has medical insurance, the cost of his medical insurance is very high. And so we can't even afford to cover our family, honestly, under, like, between his salary and how much it costs.
Wow, to do all of your things.
Yeah, and so, and then, you know, even then your private medical insurance tends to leave you with deductibles. And when if you have multiple children, the deductibles alone can cost $400 or more a month. So it can be really difficult. But do know, too, if you are exceeding the income limit for state Medicaid, there is a state Medicaid waiver program. And most states do have one. We have one. The wait list, I'm not entirely sure how long it is in our state. Often in many states, it's like 7 years or more.
Oh my goodness.
So do be aware if you ever think that you may exceed the income limit, go ahead and apply for a state waiver now.
Yeah, because then you can wait.
Because you've got the time to sit on sit on the list and wait.
Yes. Now, we had Richard submit a question. He's looking for ideas of publishers or curriculum that you may have found helpful for middle school students that have slower processing and need a lot of repetition.
Okay. So, yes, when you have a slower, one of those slower processing speed and need lots of repetition, it can be really difficult to find any kind of good material at all. So, I don't know, and maybe you can say, and I can swing back through and kind of answer comments later too.
Sounds good.
But you don't say, where is your child at now? Like, are they at a kindergarten level now, or first grade, second grade, fifth grade? Where are they mathematically? I will say I personally use Life of Fred, and I really like Life of Fred a lot. And it's because I think it takes math and takes it from a less abstract, where you're just looking at numbers right on a sheet. And we're now showing how we're adding or subtracting or what we're doing with those numbers in the form of a story. And I've found it extremely helpful for my son, Joseph, who does struggle with that slow processing speed, because he can take the time and read the story, and we can read it as slow as he needs to, or maybe go back and reread the story. And then there aren't too many questions at the end. Most of the stories, if I read them, I can read them and have them done in under 10 minutes. And so, he can either sit and listen, or I'll read a page and then I let him read a page. So that way he gets, to listen, then read, and that helps set the information a little better. So there are several strategies potentially that you can use. But I do find if they are having these issues, you might want to look on YouTube and find you some videos and see what you can find in the way of videos to help just for that repetition, because I love my son dearly, but I can't sit there and go over something 15 times in a day. I get bored and
tired.
And I was going to say, and it's not uncommon that he has no problem with it, that he will allow me to work with him for a little bit, and I'm like, hey, here's some videos, which one do you like? And I let him pick which one that he likes. And then he'll start watching them, and he'll watch it over and over and over again. And then that's how he learns the information, because at some point later he just pops up and he's like, 3 times 3 is 9. That's right, Joseph, it is.
Oh, really? That's actually really cool when they just bring it up out of nowhere.
They just bring it up out of nowhere.
So, and the next part of the question was, do you use any planners, any daily planners that help you to stay organized?
Okay, so that's a really great question. And I hope that you can visit. So I have a nonprofit. It's Arizona Exceptional Students Association, AESA. And
that group website.
Yes, and I was, dot group, by the way. Yes, you were absolutely right. So it's aesa.group. You can look it up online. But also, I have a blog, and in my blog, I do address some homeschooling issues, and that was one of them that I tried using a planner, but because of having multiple children with disabilities, having multiple children with disabilities who also are doing therapy and doctor's appointments, I found I was doing a whole lot of crossing out. And so I was like, I'm doing this completely backwards is essentially what I figured out. So what I decided to do instead is I just document what we learn each day. Instead of trying to plan everything out, I just write down what is it that we did and what we covered. And I found that was a lot more productive on our end. And the way I keep track of that, it varies. Sometimes I do just buy like a blank teacher's planner and I write in, child's name, this is what we did, and that's what we covered. And so that way, it's a way for me to keep track of where we last were in case we are interrupted for a day, a week, a month. So it just lets me know where we left off.
Yes.
But I find that was a lot more productive.
And actually, I have my youngest daughter. She didn't have any severe special needs, and I never had her tested. But when she got older, I had her come to the Diane Craft speech at the homeschool convention because I knew she would really enjoy it. Now, she did not become a good reader till 4th grade, and she had, but anyway, she just was a younger age till she became an older teenager. But anyway, we went to the workshop, and she was like, "Mom, I think I have this, and that," whatever she said. But because it was such a low level, I think she probably did. It didn't matter that we didn't diagnose her in her case because we were able to manage. But I did the exact same thing you did. I would keep a jello notepad and I would write down, this is what we did for math.
This is what we did.
We got this book from the library because I couldn't, with her and the younger grades, I couldn't just teach exactly for a book and a curriculum like my oldest one enjoyed and it worked for her. So that's exactly what I did. And sometimes I would think, oh my gosh, we haven't done anything. But then you go back and you look at it and you're like, we've
done a lot.
So it's very important that you write it after the fact because, whether you have special needs or don't have special needs, it helps you see what you have been doing, what you have accomplished, where you stopped. And it also, when the bad days come, it helps you see that you are really doing stuff and your kids are learning.
Yes.
So Richard left another message. His kid, that is a slow processor, is in 6th grade.
Okay.
So it's almost similar to your son.
More time. Yeah.
Because your son is in 5th grade.
He's in 5th grade, but not my slow processor.
Oh,
so my slow processor, Joseph, technically he is in 5th grade, but I would say mathematically he's only in kindergarten, 1st grade. And that's just, he also has that severe disability in math. And so that's holding him back. That's one thing that holds him back. And then, again, he's considered intellectually delayed. And so that also holds him back. He can, in a given year, what you could probably standardly teach a typical child, Joseph can only get about half of that information. So I teach him roughly about half a grade's worth of material per year. Is what I've been figuring out, right, that we've been averaging. It's about half a grade a year. But again, considering his processing speed is so impaired, it makes sense.
It makes sense. Plus, if you think about it, the regular schools, they do a lot of repetition.
Correct.
So you are doing it in a different schedule, but you're almost doing eventually the same.
Correct. Well, had he been in public school, I mean, and that's part of the problem with public school in particular, with people who have slow processing speed, they can even be gifted. It doesn't matter, like you can have a wide range of intellectual ability and still have greatly impaired processing speed. But if that's the case and they do have that impaired processing speed, schools have X material they have to cover over 180 days. And so they divide it up and then this is what we need to cover every day. And that's what I was saying. Like, I tried that too, and that just didn't work.
Yeah.
And then, again, we have doctor's appointments and therapy and other things that we're doing. And so, literally, it's just not possible. Whereas, say, James, who doesn't have as big of a processing speed problem, some years we've covered 2.5 years worth of material at once. When your child is ready to learn and is able to learn that material, you can speed right through it. I mean, just really fast, faster than you ever even thought possible.
Yeah.
But that's the nice part about, kind of this small class, if you have multiple children, or direct instruction, is that you can do that.
Absolutely.
So
we also had the question, how about special needs kids that don't have access to DDD services?
Yes. So what does it say for...
Any help for kids that don't have DDD services?
Okay, so most children should be able to qualify for DDD services. So it depends on what you have going on. But if you don't, there are other organizations who help. You, I'm sure, offer classes and services that would be helpful, right? As AESA, my nonprofit is looking to host the AESA Academy this summer.
We need to talk about that.
Yes, and so we're really excited about that. And those are classes made for, not just parents who homeschool special needs children, but also any special needs child who is out over the summer and is, looking for something to kind of continue their education, that we'll be offering classes over in the West Valley. And I'm really excited about this.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
So we're going to put a link about that. That is like super exciting. Now, you are also planning a conference that we're calling the AESA. Covenant is attending the conference.
Yes,
it's
I'm
in
so
June.
glad.
I know, we're so excited. We just love all homeschoolers, and whatever you guys need is what we want to be able to try to help with. And in whatever direction the parent chooses to go, that's also what we want to support.
Right.
As much as we can. So why are you going to be doing this conference? Where is it going to be? And it's going to benefit ESA families, but also any family that has special needs, correct?
As a family who educates their child at home, right, using ESA funds, I didn't feel like there was a conference or a place for us. And I wanted to be able to have a conference where we can celebrate the fact that we use ESA, and it's not something that's stifled in any way, that we can discuss ESA. And I want to have speakers come in who address specifically areas of learning disability, so that we can really give you some excellent advice for you to take home and apply to help your child who has special needs.
That sounds amazing. But you obviously saw a hole, an area that needed to be filled. So that's why you're doing the special needs company.
Well,
It's amazing.
I think there was room for improvement, right? That I think when I went and I heard the speakers, I loved the speakers. They were great in what they did, but I didn't ever really feel like I had good tools when I left these talks for me to go home and go, I can implement this, and this is something that I can do, and I can go, and if I do these things, this may help my child learn better at home.
So who's going to be coming to your workshop? What do you have so far?
Well, I would say I have, so the director from the Seeds of Autism, she's going to be coming.
Seeds from Autism?
Yes,
Okay.
so I'm really excited that she'll be attending, and she'll be speaking. I also have Carol Fitzpatrick, who is coming.
Oh, okay.
And she'll also be, speaking and giving
dyslexia.
Advice about dyslexia, and also dysgraphia and dyscalculia, because those all sort of run together and are related to dyslexia. So those are a couple of the speakers that I already have lined up.
That sounds
and then
great.
we're also looking to have like a parent panel, veteran ESA parents to be there to answer any questions concerning ESA. How do you get started? What do you need to do? And just really answer any question that you have concerning ESA.
Yeah. And then are you going to have like a panel for just general special needs stuff too? Or something like that?
I was going to say, we're still like in works and planning
cool.
with like my speaker in, right? I've been really busy, and I was going to say, people think I'm crazy because I am homeschooling my surviving quadruplets. I run a nonprofit. Now I'm hosting this conference, and I've been kind of a one-woman show. So if you would like to volunteer and help, please let me know, because I'd be very happy to have some volunteers, because I'm running myself a little thin.
Yes.
But yes, I've been trying to just finish filling up my vendor spaces. I have like 4 more left that I'm
that's
going
exciting.
to fill. Yes, so
Yeah.
I'm really excited, and
this is the first one.
This is the first
This
conference.
is amazing.
So it's really hard to convince people to attend the first conference because they're like, "Who are you again?"
But it's nice and affordable.
It is. The individual ticket price is only $16. I did the best I could to hold down the cost of the event. So an individual ticket's $16, and a family ticket I think is like $26.
So you are also having, I forgot, Lily and
Austin and Lily.
Austin and Lily. We met them at the Homeschool Convention.
Austin and Lily will be attending. They're one of the vendors who will be attending the event, and I believe Janet is planning on speaking at our event.
Oh, amazing. They create curriculum for kids with Down syndrome, correct?
Well, no, actually, it's more specifically for children with intellectual disabilities.
Okay.
And I really like her curriculum. I use it with my son Joseph, and her books are nice in the fact that they are made for children who have intellectual disabilities, and it's just a great, no extra frills, basically little book to discuss topics, which is perfect for children who have the slow processing speed or the intellectual delay, because you're not wading through a lot of extra information, right?
Yes.
It's very direct and answers whatever it is that the little book is talking about.
That could be really good for Richard that was asking about curriculum for slow processing.
Maybe. It depends on where they fall intellectually, because slow processing speed doesn't, like I said, automatically impair overall IQ or cognition. So it just depends. And hopefully Richard will comment more, and I will come back through and I will finish answering any questions that you have.
Now, Elena has a question. She's asking about if you have any tips to avoid jealousy between special needs child who requires a lot of time and attention and a gifted child who learns effortlessly but feels left out.
Yes. So, again, I kind of have that scenario too, because I have the one who is 2E. So, yes, he's special needs, but he's more gifted than, I would really consider having special needs. And often what I do is I provide him for our children, we try to set up so that we give each one of them individual, like, mommy and daddy time each week, so that they can look forward to that and know that they have our undivided attention on them to discuss what's going on with them. And the other thing, too, that we do is, because I have the child who is more on the gifted end, I'm like, hey, what would you like to do, right? So besides kind of the basic subjects that you typically cover in homeschool, James covers those too. But I'm like, hey, what else would you? So he's signed up with Coda Kids, and he takes online courses, and he is amazing in Minecraft because he can now build his own mods and whatever. I don't even understand what all is going on over there.
Oh,
anyways,
cool.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's so much fun, right? Watching him over there, and he's like typing all this stuff, and I'm like, wow, that's really impressive. But anyways, that's something that makes him feel good because it's something he does on his own. I come over, I watch him work, and then, we discuss, like, oh, that's really amazing. Look what you were just doing. And so that helps, again, kind of give him that attention that he's craving from me. And then also we do talk to him and just say, and it's hard, right? Especially when they're younger, but just keep letting them know, I do love you. I love you very much, and you may feel like I spend more time with your sibling, but it's because they need my assistance, and you don't require my assistance to help you do the most basic of things. And so I often have to remind James, and he's like, well, Joseph gets to. Yes, he does, but it's because he needs my assistance and you don't, and it can be hard to accept. Hard. Yeah.
Yep. So you are going to be talking, and April 2nd, you're going to be at the Autism Society of Greater Phoenix, right?
Correct.
And anybody that wants to learn more about autism and hear more from Michelle, you should come. And I will tell you, this is just a little conversation. We met 2 weeks ago.
Yes, 2 weeks ago.
I just feel, every time I talk to you, I feel so many tidbits of information, a lot of really great knowledge, things that I never knew. So I really would recommend, if you have children with autism and you want to learn about that, do go to that event. Is there any specific themes you're going to be talking about, or is it just general autism?
Well, so at the event, and this is the West Valley Parent Meetup over in the Peoria Recreation Center for April 2nd.
April 2nd.
And
what time is it going to be at?
I believe it's 6:30.
Okay.
And again, we can post a link to that information too. But there I'll be talking about autism in the educational setting, because I believe most of the parents who attend that group do have their children in public school. But I'm absolutely available and I'm willing to talk if people are interested about ESA, about homeschooling, what it's like to homeschool children who have special needs, in particular autism, because all three of my surviving quadruplets have autism, and we pretty much kind of range the spectrum with my children. And I also have a blog post again on AESA.group, and that blog post is literally called Autism in the Educational Setting, to really kind of help explain that difference between, like we were talking about earlier, educational and medical therapies and educational and medical diagnoses.
Yes.
So
last night I was on your website,
yes,
and I was reading a few of your blogs. They're most definitely, whether you are an ESA family or a homeschooling family that is doing it privately, those blogs apply to all families. They're very, very insightful and logical, and it's very good information. I enjoy reading it.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you're not telling me there's a lot of typos.
Well,
spelling is not my strong suit.
the funny thing is that I probably wouldn't notice it.
That's good. Makes you feel good. All right. So yeah, I try to write all these blog posts in a very conversational kind of manner. A lot of the topics that I cover are a little heavy duty. They're a little information intense. And so I try to write them in as plain a language as I can, as conversationally as I can, because I think that helps in taking in the information. But I'm always willing to speak, and you can also call me. Again, my organization, Arizona Exceptional Students Association. I have a phone number. You can call me up, or you can send me a private message through Facebook. So there's lots of ways you can get in contact with me. But I know a lot of people, when they talk to me, they feel overwhelmed by the amount of information that I know. So sometimes I feel like I overwhelm people. So I'm glad.
Well, since I'm done homeschooling, my kids are 24 and 25. Happy birthday today, Diana. They're 25 and 29.
Really?
Yes.
Birthday. Oh, that's
yes.
so
And
nice.
she's in China. I talked to her last night, and it was her birthday in China. But I had to tell her happy birthday today.
What an amazing birthday. Be in China.
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
So anyway, Benita, happy birthday. Love you.
Oh. I was going to say my oldest son is 26, so we have children right about,
Yes.
So, because I have 5 children, 5 surviving children. So I have a 26-year-old, a 24-year-old, and then I have my surviving quadruplets who are 11.
Yes.
So
I absolutely enjoy talking to you, even because I'm at the stage, I'm done homeschooling. If I would have met you maybe in my first year of homeschooling, my head would have felt like humongous, because I was one of those homeschooling parents. My first homeschool convention, I was walking out, and our dear friend Tammy Lopez, maybe some of you guys have heard about it. She was big in the homeschool community back in the day. Anyway, she saw me walking out, and she just looked at me, and I have no idea how I looked. And she was like, "Are you okay, Janet?" I was like, "I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I saw this, and I saw that, and I'm supposed to buy this, and I'm supposed to buy that, and I don't have enough money." Anyway, so I was so stressed. So we can totally understand, and that's part of the reason why we're doing this Facebook Lives, and probably part of the reason I love meeting people like Michelle, because I'm done. I'm done, and I have all these years of knowledge, and I can learn more, and I can hear more, and then when people come in, I can encourage you guys. So if you are getting started, just remember what we were talking about. Don't worry about doing the school at home.
No.
Whether you have special needs or regular students, it doesn't matter. Not the special needs, not regular.
be easy on yourself.
Be easy on yourself.
Because a lot of people, I think, their expectations are way up here, that we're recreating school at home. No, don't do that. Don't have your expectations kind of set there. Be flexible. Especially, I believe, like the first 3 years. 3 years. It's a long time. But those 3 years when you first start homeschooling, it takes you, like, a teacher, my husband even said, I went to school. I got my degree in education. When I left college, he goes, I wasn't prepared to teach in a classroom. And it took him 3 years to get enough experience to really settle into his position in teaching. And most any teacher will tell you that. And I think the same holds true for us. It takes us about 3 years to kind of settle into like, what's our groove? How do we teach? This is how I go about teaching. Does it mesh with my child's learning style? You know, if it doesn't, then we need to, you know, evaluate that and figure out how we can kind of meet in the middle. So yeah, be easy on yourself.
Totally. And the thing, you're not going to damage your kids during those first 3 years that you're figuring it out. They're learning too. You know, you're growing together. They're growing in their own way. You're growing also.
Absolutely.
And it truly works. I mean, just like you said, public school teachers, regular teachers, 3 years. So we homeschool teachers, 3 years. And then after that, it doesn't like magically become easily, but you already have it all figured out. The next challenge will pop up, and God will give you the ability to figure it out.
Absolutely.
So just keep on going. Don't give up, and limit screen time. I think that is one of the biggest challenges in my opinion. Too much screen time is not necessarily good, especially entertainment screen time.
I'll definitely agree with that, because again, my slow processor, he needs screen time because though I love him to death, I can't sit there and go over the timetables like 15 times.
Exactly.
So you're
using it as a tool, not as a entertainment.
Correct.
Yes.
And I have written a few different blog posts on, say, like educational aspects of different apps for the Kindle. I have like 25 apps that you can put on an Android device that will help somebody with special needs. So those are potential posts to look for to get some ideas of how to constructively use the internet or electronic devices.
That sounds amazing. So we are almost done. Is there anything else that you think we need to tell our homeschooling friends?
Well, I was going to say, so for our conference, the Empowering Exceptional Students of Arizona, the AESA conference, our tickets are on sale on Eventbrite. You can also find the AESA conference has its own webpage on Facebook, and I can provide links to that along with my nonprofit AESA. And I think we've about it, because you have the ability to reach us at any time. That's what I like about Facebook. Yes. So, you know, reach out if you have any more questions, by all means, because I know a lot of people feel very hesitant to ask questions, but honestly, if you don't know, ask. It doesn't matter how dumb you may think your question is. Your question is not dumb, because if you have it, it needs to be addressed.
Absolutely.
Right? So don't ever feel like your question is
experts for special needs, but we meet people like you, and we're always learning. And if we can help you
every day, I learn something new.
If we're gonna help you, we'll try to redirect you to somewhere where we think you will be able to get the help. So come in, visit us. We're open Tuesday through Friday. Give us a call, send a message to Michelle. We'll put in her website and all the information there in the comment section. And thank you so much for coming.
Oh, no, thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
And thank you for celebrating my youngest daughter's birthday with me.
Yay.
And happy birthday to my oldest daughter, too, who has, it's a birthday month for my girl. So she had her birthday 5 days ago.
Oh, that's so cute. They're so close together.
I know.
That's nice.
Yeah, we had birthday parties together, but totally different themes, because I had an athlete and a girly girl.
Yeah, it can be tough.
Anyway, thank you guys. You guys have a wonderful day. I hope this Facebook Live has blessed you, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.